Evening, everybody. How's it going? It's been a little while, and this feels a little odd, to be totally honest. It's been quite a bit since I've sat in front of a camera and talked to you all. Just make sure everything is opened up here. That's good. All the other windows are closed. Yeah, so how's everybody doing? I'm doing great myself. I've been kind of online and things off and on, not as regular as I want. Part of that is due to just being summer. Part of that is due to work. Part of that is due to other things that have caught my interest lately. I've still been reading comics and stuff, not nearly as much as in the past. I've barely picked up any lately. The ones that I have picked up, I think I talked about on Twitter. I kind of showed off on Twitter or whatever. One of the series that I got was Omaha the Cat Dancer. I think I found the first 12 issues, 2 separate spots. And a couple other books here and there. Moonshadow, I finally got all the issues of that. I still have 2 left to read in that 12-issue series. And I talked a bit about it when I did the hangout with Johnny Zero. If you haven't read Moonshadow, highly recommended. I found, it took me a little while to find all the issues, but I did find them pretty cheap. What I didn't realize was that they were then later reprinted by Vertigo, DC's Vertigo. So you can get the same series. The first time it was put out, it was Epic Comics, and then it was reissued or re-released or reprinted is the word I'm looking for, by Vertigo. And then I think there was a one-shot. I don't have the one-shot. It's kind of however many years after the story, just as kind of like a look back or a recap. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen that one around, but if you haven't read the series, highly recommended. Omaha the Cat Dancer has been surprisingly good, very kind of soap opera-y, but pretty entertaining. And then just a few odds and ends here. Nothing. Those are the 2 that kind of jump up first. On the Moonshadow tip, I also found a bunch of issues. The last one, which was another DeMatteis series. I think that one was 5 issues or 6 issues. I think I'm only missing 1 in that mini series now, and that one's really great too. I've just read the first couple of issues. Really enjoying that one too. So what have I been doing lately? It's been a lot of music. Really got back into listening to all kinds of music, specifically like electronic and experimental and that sort of thing, but running the gamut. It all kind of sparked when I found a cheap synthesizer, a couple of videos about synthesizers, and in April, I think I picked it up, end of April. I got a gift card to a local music store here in town, Long and McQuaid, for $75 or something like that. So I used that towards buying the synthesizer, and it is it's the Korg Monologue, and this is it right here. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. The cool little features is this little window here shows you the wave shape as you're manipulating. There's 2 oscillators, VCO1, VCO2, and you can you have a choice on VCO1. You have sawtooth, triangle, and square wave. On VCO2, you have sawtooth, triangle, and then noise. And then you can blend them and shape them, and then put them through some filters and LFOs and other decays and attack. It's got a sequencer, a 16-step sequencer. You can record. There's banks in here that have been programmed by Aphex Twin, and tunings all different kinds of tunings for it. Some of the tunings, again, created by Aphex Twin, Richard D. James, if you know Aphex Twin. Really, really great. So much fun. So I spent quite a while playing with this on its own, and then I started experimenting with patching it through some of, I've got a lot of guitar and bass and things for some of the music I've done off and on throughout the years. So started patching that through all those effects pedals and playing with that, which has been a blast. So then watching videos like this and kind of exploring the whole world of synthesizers, touching on modular synths, and just kind of exploring that world a little bit. Lots of really, really cool stuff happening there. Regenerated a love of a lot of like modular synth and just kind of experimental and noisier stuff, just kind of reignited that kind of passion and enjoyment and interest. And so that's really sucked up my life lately. When I do watch YouTube, it's a lot of like modular synth stuff. And there's a company called Make Noise. Sorry, that light is flickering there. Should be okay. One sec. I don't have a proper dimmer for these new LED bulbs that go in this old 1950s fixture. Anyway, so it'll flicker. Sorry if that's a bit irritating. So a company called Make Noise really caught my interest. And one of the things that caught my interest was this no coast or zero coast or O coast. So this basically is sort of a modular synth in a little package. So you've got like control voltages, filters, overtones, contours, slopes, tempos, that sort of thing. No sequencer or anything. So there's a pre-routed signal from the in to the out. It also has MIDI in as well too. Sorry, MIDI in as well, which is great. The Korg has a MIDI out, so I've been able to patch them together and play them together. So basically, there's a one route that the signal takes to go out through headphones or into amplifier or mixer or something like that. So then the basic idea with modular synthesizers, those of you who may not know, is then you can patch that signal and reroute it to different things and loop it back on itself and all sorts of fun stuff. So it's called a no coast. One of the things that I did discover was a documentary called I Dream of Wires. I was able to find it online and watch it. Really, really great. Just kind of talked about the history of modular synth, which I didn't know very much about. I'm very, very green when it comes to this whole world, which has also been really exciting to kind of dive in. I don't know much about it. So in the documentary, it really gives you a taste of synthesizers and how they were created and how it changed music completely. And one of the things that I found I really liked was there's this whole, as with all sorts of different music genres, there seems to be like an East Coast versus West Coast kind of style. On the East Coast, you had Bob Moog, who was creating the Moog synthesizer. And on the West Coast, you had Don Buchla, who was creating like the Buchla synthesizer. The main difference in kind of like 65, mid to late 60s, a guy named Morton Subotnick, who's incredible, has made some incredible music, wanted somebody to create an instrument for him. And he had very specific ideas that he wanted to achieve with this instrument. And Don Buchla was one of the people that answered the ad in the paper, basically. The main thing that he was noticing and that he talks about in this documentary is that when it came to East Coast synthesis and East Coast synthesizers, there was an idea of getting the synthesizer, but putting a keyboard on it. And his whole thing was, if I'm going to create a new instrument that's going to create sounds that we've and create music that's never been played before, I don't want a black and white piano style keyboard on it, because that's just going to lead me down the same paths of music that's already there. I want something that's more along this line, where it's an oscillator or a control voltage that you're then putting through various filters, and you're affecting it in different ways, and routing it through different ways. So it's going to lead you to create something that hasn't been heard before, or maybe not completely unheard before, but lead you down a path of creating new music. And I just found that really a really nice, succinct way to kind of differentiate between the East and West Coast. As with a lot of things, I do like both. I do kind of lean a little more towards the West Coast style, because some of the sounds that they were making and some of the things that they were doing appeal to my ears more. It's a little bit more out there. And it's also just an interesting point in the documentary too. Don't want to talk too much about it, but one of the things that I found really great was this idea that these type of instruments didn't exist, and they only got created in like the mid to late 60s and then became popular. And then the documentary just shows how it infiltrated music and completely changed the musical landscape. So it really is a time where there was a new instrument created, not within my lifetime before I was born, but still not that long ago. So that idea really captured me as well too, that this is still like such a new art form. It's still such a new to explore when it comes to electronic music. Count Von Strange IV, how's it going? I'm doing good. What's going on? Not much. How the hell are you? So I really, all that just kind of kept leading me down this path, and watching a lot of videos and experimenting with this. And one of the things that also appeals to me about this style of synthesizer and this style of creating music is I kind of like the idea of letting these electronics and these signals speak for themselves. So yes, there's an appeal for a sequencer to have a certain amount of notes play, if it's front to back or backwards or randomized or whatever. There's an appeal to that for sure. But part of the appeal to me, especially once I got this no coast or zero coast, was trying to make this speak on its own, and seeing what kind of sounds it'll create on its own without me inputting any sequence or inputting a tempo, letting the internal clock. There's a randomization here they'll change the voltage. Everything lights up on here, so this will kind of do 3 or 4 different brightness levels, and that changes the signal to whatever it's going in and randomizes it like that. So really trying to make this speak has been a hell of a lot of fun. And some of the noises that I've created on this, or maybe even not created, just uncovered basically. It's not that I've created them, I've just patched them to bring them out of the instruments, have been a lot of fun. And I've been recording a lot of them too. I've got a little H2 Zoom microphone, and it's got a line in, so I can go right from the headphones directly into the little recorder that runs off of batteries, and just records to a little SD card, and then put it all on the computer to do something with later. I've got a few ideas rumbling in my head, and I've been doing other recordings and saving things. Got some ideas I haven't quite yet, you know what I mean? So it's still going to take a bit of time, but that type of thing has just been so appealing and so interesting for me. Just love the idea of these things having their own voice. And then something that I just got recently. Do I have them in here? So you get all these patch cables of different lengths. I don't seem to have them in here. And then, of course, give me one sec. Then, of course, the next, almost immediately, because I've seen them obviously a lot in videos, the next purchase was getting stackable patch cables. So then I can take the same output, say from that randomization clock, or just the clock and internal clock itself, and now route it to a couple of different spots to really blend things. Yeah, I mean, hours of fun. Literally, it was kind of. I've taken a break for the past few nights here, but it was every night for a couple of hours, sitting on this and experimenting. And the other good thing about our world of YouTube and internet these days is there's a million videos out there and tutorials and people who have made kind of discoveries themselves and just kind of sharing patches. So a lot of that for me, as much as kind of experimenting with it on my own, it's been great to see some of those patches and use them as a jumping off point. So watching what they do in the video and recreating it myself to get that same sound, and then just using that, okay, well now what if I change this to here, and what if I add this, and blah, blah, blah. And then when I photocopied a bunch of these blanks, basically of the No Coast's face, and then have started keeping diagrams and plotting out the various patches that I've uncovered and keeping track of, and most of them have recordings to go with it. So that's been a hell of a lot of fun to just kind of road maps of things that I've discovered on there. So anyway, clearly this isn't going to be comic book talk, but if you are interested at all, and if you do stick around, maybe there'll be something that appeals to you anyway. So down near my work, there's a record store, and there's a couple of guys that work there that I know. And shortly after, I can't remember if it was after I got the No Coast or just before, maybe after I saw the documentary, I went in, and lo and behold, Morton Subotnick record, Until Spring, created on the Electric Music Box. And I hadn't heard this one, and it's incredible. I have Silver Apples of the Moon on vinyl. I've also got it on CD, and then I've got, is it called The Wild Bull, I think, on CD as well. And Silver Apples of the Moon, I found for like $1. I found a bunch of electronic music albums years and years and years ago at a little kind of quote unquote antique shop. They had a box filled with electronic music records. They didn't know what they were. They didn't know what to do with them, so they were charging $1 a piece. And in there were a whole bunch of records, but Morton Subotnick's Silver Apples of the Moon, which I just devoured when I first put that on the turntable. And I'd say that in that one, I really, really like some of the sounds that he's creating on this. $9.50, so just under $10 for this sucker. Yeah, very, very cool. So then that kind of led me down. The other thing that I've been doing at work when I am in the office is I've been listening to a lot of Bandcamp. If anybody listens to music online, maybe you're familiar with Bandcamp. Really, really great music resource. Another one of those things that you can really dive down the rabbit hole once you start following threads and go deeper and deeper, uncovering all this insane music. Some kind of more mainstream and bigger names attached to it, but the beauty with any of this kind of stuff is that it's open to anybody. Anyone can put their music up there and sell it, or give it away for free, create their own page, have their own record label, and there's a million tape cassette labels out there. So that's kind of what sparked it. A friend of mine that I used to play with, Fletcher Pratt, he put out a CD. He went to Mills College, and on Instagram, he was showing kind of he has a 2 cassette box set, I guess, of various recordings that he did while he was at Mills College. So he was showing this and saying that you could listen to samples on Bandcamp, and you could buy it through Bandcamp. So that's kind of what sparked me looking a little closer. I've heard of Bandcamp, but I just never really had the patience or the interest. As with a lot of people, I'm sure, interest kind of it's always there, and music has always been kind of a #1 love for me. But you know, you do go through times where you're just kind of less focused on it and you're into other things or whatever. So I never really pursued it. But this, I really wanted to pre-order this cassette, and then I looked at the label to see what else they had, and I ended up ordering a couple of things from them. Got my cassettes here. So once I started down that road, started searching for artists that I liked, to see if they were represented on there, or little labels that I liked that I had heard about and read about. Just kind of kept going and opening and unfolding, and next thing you know, a lot of the stuff is dirt cheap. There was a lot of stuff that I was buying just digitally. Not everything obviously has physical copies. The other great thing about it is that it's just exists in a digital world. So there was a lot of stuff I was listening to, or that I ended up buying from people that I paid like $1 for, kind of like they just wanted a token dollar value to get their music. And at work, especially when I'm at the office, a lot of the stuff that I've been finding on Bandcamp has just been really great, as kind of just background music in my office while I'm doing emails. And we had a big check audit whole thing happening. So while I was doing that kind of paperwork and things, it was great to have, especially some more of this electronic instrumental work. Is really good to have in the background and just engaging enough to kind of keep you focused and going. So the point of that story was that it just started opening up a world. So this is the few other things that I got from the same label, and the label is called Never Anything Records .bandcamp. So The Lost Estate by a guy named John Dillon. Lisa Sonata with a tape called Clearing. Really nice design and packaging on a lot of these. Dave Swenson, Garden Mirror. And Takahiro Mukai, Percussion Tenderness, which is a really great tape. I really like this one quite a bit. The other thing that I'm finding, especially now that, and all of them have digital download codes and stuff, because the generation gap is growing for me now, not kind of, obviously no one's as young as they used to be, but that gap is always fun for me because there's a whole new aesthetic with younger people that are making experimental music. And I mean, obviously not all of them are younger. There's a lot of old timers that are still doing it and just changing platforms to sell their music. But a lot of the design on these labels is just so goddamn impressive to me. There's been a lot of stuff where you just even look at their Bandcamp page, and the design that they have across the board on their album covers. They really have a good visual aesthetic. They've got a real good handle on that kind of thing. And one of the labels that really blew me away, honestly, with the art first, and then once I started listening to the music, equally impressive, label called Timbal Tapes, Tymbal. I'll just show you the little, there it is right there. He had a deal on for dirt cheap. You could buy all of his catalog digitally for, I can't remember how much it was, but it was next to nothing. And once I kind of heard some samples, really a lot of his stuff really appealed to me. So I ended up buying the whole thing. I messaged him a day or two later, just to say, hey, I'm loving everything that you put out. I love the artwork, and can I be on a mailing list if you have any new releases that are coming out? Because again, I was still new to the thing. Once you kind of follow labels or artists, Bandcamp automatically alerts you when a new release is coming out. I didn't know that at the time. I'm still in the mode of getting flyers and getting like catalogs in the mail and that sort of thing. So my thought went straight to email. I should get in touch with them to get on a mailing list or something. And his response was really, really kind. Very, very nice guy. He said, I actually was going to get in touch with you thanks so much for buying the catalog. I have 2 tapes that are coming out right away. I'd like to send them to you. Just give me your address. So he was kind enough to send me 2 for free. One from an artist that goes by on this release, Boreon Argon, with album called Mirages, and it's modular synth stuff, as you can see by the cover there. And this is a fantastic, both of these are fantastic tapes. This one is really, really great. And like I said, the artwork and the aesthetic is very, just, you know, and again, I mean, you know, I'm a visual beast. And the type of cardstock that he uses for the tapes are great. And the guy that he has doing art, design and layout by Tiny Little Hammers. There's no website. I thought there was for Tiny Little Hammers. Anyway, amazing. And again, comes with digital download codes. So then I can have it on the computer. And then the other one that he sent me was from Eve Malone, and this is called Bone Black. More synthesizer type driven music. Fantastic as well. Both of these, like I said, really, really great tapes. There's a look at the track listing. And again, the nice silver cassette. So those ones have been really damn good. Another label that I discovered called Hard or Horde Records, H-A-O-R-D Records. Most of their stuff is long out of print. The one thing I managed to get my hands on, again, it was a really incredible visual appeal to everything that they put out. And then listening to the music was just incredible. My friend, the same guy, Fletcher, had recommended this label to me, actually, saying that they've got a couple of really great releases. One of their releases was kind of Tabs Out is the name of a podcast and a website that kind of talks about more experimental and unusual music, not exclusively, but more along that lines of things. They had kind of a best of 2016, and one of the Horde Records releases was kind of ranked as #1. So I bought the tape and then bought some stuff digitally as I was listening, and this tape ended up getting played so many times. Again, once you buy the cassette, you get the download. So I downloaded it and put it onto a CD, listened to it in the car, listened to it here at home. And then when the tape showed up, we played it a few times. Cabo Boing, Blob on a Grid. If you think of like some of the reviews, they talked about Devo and Pee-wee's Playhouse music and stuff like that. Those are very good references, especially Devo, Mark Mothersbaugh. Such a fantastic tape. It's really just mind-blowingly good. So much fun, so clever, so quirky, so unique. He's just a one-man outfit. There's the lyrics inside there, and then there's the cover. Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of Devo, like if you're a hardcore fan of Devo, you will absolutely love this tape. I can't recommend it enough to you. Just really fun. Nice short release too. I think under half an hour. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I listened to it just incessantly. Such a great album. Another label that really caught my interest along those kind of strange music lines. I was always into kind of stuff that was off the beaten path. And if you know my comic channel and stuff that I read, it's probably not much of a surprise. I've always loved the hunt. I've always loved digging for stuff. And when it comes to music, a lot of the stuff that appeals to me, especially when it's kind of under the umbrella of rock music, it's things like U.S. Maple. It's things like James Chance and the Contortions, DNA, Teenage Jesus and the Jerks, the whole kind of no wave scene that was kind of a blip in New York there for a bit. Had some really, really great stuff. And that kind of idea, Skin Graft Records and places like that who were putting out some more unusual things, have always appealed to me. I love that sound. I love the kind of disjointedness of some of it. So there was a label, Ramp Local, and I heard a bunch of their stuff and couldn't resist. Again, along those lines, and really, really great. Bands like Big Neck Police. This one's called Don't Eat My Friends. A couple of unusual ones. This one is maybe a little more accessible, maybe is the word, but still some really great, unusual tracks and timing and that sort of thing. And another one, actually two of them, from a group called Old Maybe. These are really fun as well too. Piggity Pink, this one is fantastic. I think this is my favorite of the two, and this one's called Oblio. Some colored cassettes on these ones. And another great listen by a group called Band Books. There's the front of that. A lot of fun as well. And then finally what they had was they had a couple of compilations, Eclectic Sessions Volume 1 and Volume 2. And this was kind of, especially Volume 1, it was a lot of local bands that he was hearing and just really appealed to his ear. Bands like Palberta, Big Neck Police, Cloud Becomes Your Hand, Palm, Curse Purse, Band Books, Sediment Club, Gold Dime, etc., etc., etc. So this is Volume 1 of that compilation. And I mean, you know, as with anthology comics, you can't go wrong with a good old compilation. Even if there's a half a dozen tracks on it that you enjoy, it makes it worth it. And then following those threads. And then this is Volume 2 on some beautiful pink cassettes. So that's Ramp Local. And then kind of while I was digging through analog synths, came across another label called, what the heck is this label called there? FGS. Fat Grabbers. They have some really amazing stuff, and I got a few of their cassettes. The one that I was most excited for, Banahaffer and Rodent, a split cassette. The Banahaffer side is incredible. To a record store full of people, and she performs a lot of modular synth stuff live, and her side of this is incredible. The Rodent side is pretty good too, but I think for me personally, I think her side wins the battle. I really, really like what she does on this. Two cassettes from somebody that goes by the name Freaks, Freqz. I'm a big fan of Macaris and Scorn and Techno Animal and those kind of things. These are along those lines of those groups, especially Scorn, I think. Obviously, not exactly, but that's the kind of world that I would put it in. And then finally, Sandcastle. So really, really great tapes from that label as well. And almost finally for cassettes, just talk finally about, again, the ability to kind of rediscover some acts that I hadn't listened to for a long time was unavoidable. Andy Ortman, who played in a group called Panicsville. I'm not a huge fan of their stuff, but there's been a few things that I've liked of his over the years. And his label is called Nihilist. and he's got a whole bunch of stuff up on Bandcamp. Most recently, album called Birthday by a guy named Anthony Janis. Just listened to this today, actually. Pretty great. I like this one quite a bit. Also got some stuff digitally from Nihilist as well. And I was listening to that in the car, some Andy Ortman solo stuff. And the other one I got was Andy Ortman Buchla on tape. So the Buchla synthesizer and his solo cassette with a beautiful red tape, nice label. Really, really good album. Again, that whole kind of West Coast vibe with guys like this is very strong. So that's an appeal to me. Kind of in that same world, one of the artists that's always impressed me the most is this group, Hans Grussel's Crankin' Cabinet. There's a whole kind of Oakland, California, and San Francisco scene that I've talked about before a few times, with kind of costumed performance art / noise groups doing all sorts of incredible things, sort of kind of under the umbrella of what was called Brutal Sound Effects. There was a label, a couple of incarnations of a label that was that dealt with a lot of that world. Some of the guys work at video game companies. I think Hans Grussel works at a video game company doing kind of sound design for video games. So this whole idea of having a performance with costumes and sometimes making up soundtracks to films. Hans Grussel, most notably for me, did a soundtrack for an Alice in Wonderland kind of stop motion animation short that is just completely mind blowing. I think it's an incredible piece. And a lot of these people end up playing in other acts across the board, and it's kind of a close-knit group of people there. And Midnight is one of the groups that has some crossover with Hans Grussel. So there was a new release by a label called Recip Ascent, which again, in this whole world of weirdo electronic music and noise and things like that, it's a label that's right up my alley. I've got a few things from them now, so I couldn't resist pre-ordering the Midnight Cut Bruise, and it's fantastic. Kind of set up in 3 movements or 3 different pieces, each with their own little sections. Really fantastic listen. And then I took the opportunity to order some older Hans Grussel stuff. I'd heard this one digitally. I had it digitally for a long time. This is Blue Blooded Tauren, and or Blau Blooded. Fantastic album as well. On this album is the Alice in Wonderland piece that I was talking about, along with some other things. Really, really great. And then they were kind enough to send me some freebies. A Surge Modular Users 2009. I guess there was an event, Surge Modular, which is another guy that was creating synthesizers. So this has Hans Grussel on it, as well as a bunch of other names, a lot that I don't know, a couple that I've heard here and there. Bengi I've heard before, Concrete I've heard before. Don't know too much about them, and then just Carlos Giffoni I've heard before, and then some other names that I just don't know at all. Really, really fun album, really, really great. And then they sent me, Hans Grussel was part of he also did stuff on his own, the main guy, and played with other musicians. A lot of the stuff that he does with the Crankin' Cabinet there, it's kind of field recordings and tape manipulations and synthesizers and effects and that sort of thing, along with, like I said, performance. He also sat in with some people who are playing like cello, doing their own electronics and things, but I think there was a couple of times he sat in with people where they were just playing kind of I believe it was like woodwinds and strings. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know too much about that side of things. So this was a release that he did. Sokka Chen, Grussel, and Nagai. And that's just what it's called. It's just them. Interesting. I don't mind it. It's not, I don't like it as much as I like the cranking cabinet stuff. There's some good pieces on here for sure. The thing that I really like about cranking cabinet and some of that music is movement. I'm okay with stuff that takes some sitting and focus and listening. I'm not as good as it at it anymore as I once was. There was a time where I was really into some more minimalist stuff, and not that this is minimalist by any stretch. It's just compared to some of the cranking cabinet stuff, I would put it a little more towards that edge than this side of it. A lot of the electronic and noise stuff that I like stuff that moves at a bit of a quicker pace, even if it is one instrument kind of talking at a time. There's a particular movement. It's hard to describe. It sounds all fucking pretentious probably. Anyway, the other thing that I ordered from them, where is it? Beautiful. I gotta take this out of the sleeve. Liz Albee and Hans Grussel. Liz Albee plays with Cranking Cabinet as well from time to time. I don't know if she's a full-time member, but they did a split LP, and this is it, with some just incredible art. Some really great, I think, is it Bonnie Banks? I'm not sure now. Let's see, does it say the artist? Yeah, so cover art, Bonnie Banks, Zucker Krieg, and then the Liz Albee side as well there. Fantastic album, really, just really great. We've got almost all the Cranking Cabinet stuff now. I have another one coming to me in the mail. Happiest Pitch on CD, which again, I've had digitally for a while. And that was the first album from them that I heard and fell in love with it instantly, and then devoured anything that they did. And then today in the mail, I got their first release on cassette, Candy Coated Terror, which I'm so excited about. I've listened to it twice already. Really great. I'd say I like the first side a little more, but the whole thing is just, yeah, it's just fantastic. Comes with a little button as well, and you get a postcard. And this is how they dress when they perform live. And they almost have this kind of horrific children's fairy tale thing going on with their live performances. They usually work in some cover songs in their live performances as well too, which can be really entertaining with the singing log here, singing like a Black Flag song, or, you know, so great. I'd never heard this album before. I think on the Cranking Cabinet website, they have it. You can stream it. Maybe it's a SoundCloud link or something. But you know, it's one thing to hear it on there. It's another to take the tape out, put it in the player, and hear it at home. Yeah, fantastic. It cost me a couple of bucks, but I think it's completely worth it. Really great. Don't know if there's much else along those kind of lines. Just talk about a few records that I've picked up over the past little while. My birthday was in April. On my birthday, actually, a band that I like called Weedeater came through town, and I went to see them for the second time. And when I was there, they had some of their, or all of their albums, I think, on vinyl. Reissued on vinyl, so I picked up this one, 16 Tons. It's probably my favorite out of all of theirs. I think they did a later album that they recorded with Steve Albini. I'm a big fan of MF Doom. Couldn't resist this. Special Herbs, Volume 1 and 2. It's a double LP set. It's just instrumentals. I like it. I realized listening to this, part of what I love about MF Doom is his vocals and his presence on the tracks. So this is great, but I find I'm listening to the track and I really just want to hear him start rhyming on them, right? So, and it also comes with a 7-inch, a bonus 7-inch as well. Again, it's a good album, and I'm glad that I have it. It's not something that I'd throw on first. I'd throw on one of his other albums that I have before this one. Secret Chiefs 3 is a band that I had a chance to see a couple of years ago, again, in the whole world of John Zorn, Mike Patton, etc., West Coast type of people. Secret Chiefs 3 has been a band that's been with me for a long time. When I first heard their stuff that they put on Amarillo Records, that I was a big fan of. And this is with Secret Chiefs 3 on some of the later albums, on some of the latest albums rather, some of the newer ones. They break the big band up into small sub bands, and each of those bands has kind of a genre or a style that they focus on. One of the groups has a more kind of Italian spaghetti western giallo kind of vibe to them, a soundtracky kind of vibe. One has a little more of a metal type of vibe. One has more of like just a very, very kind of East Indian type of vibe. And that's kind of what this one is. And it's called Secret Chiefs 3. I'm going to butcher the names and I apologize. Ishraquiyun Parachirosis. I'm sorry. I know that I'm completely butchering that. Pretty great album. 1, 2, 3, just 6 tracks on it. I believe it's new. Oh no, it's not. 2014. I thought it was last year actually. Wrong about that. Pretty good. That was at the local bookstore. A year ago when my brother came to visit, he's got a radio show. He invited myself, my son, and my dad to go onto the show, and we had kind of like a fuller men radio show where we each played some music and stuff. My dad pulled out a record, or brought a record that we used to listen to with him. We used to listen to with him a lot when we were kids, and we really loved it. And it was so great to hear on the radio again. And when I wanted to see the jacket, one of the things I wanted to look at was the booklet that came with it. Open up the record and there's no booklet. He's somehow misplaced the booklet, or I don't know what's happened to it. He didn't have it. So I told him, I said, I sometimes see this record out there. I'll keep my eyes out for one. And if it's cheap enough and it has the book, I'll buy it and I'll just give you the book and I'll keep the Ratty record. I didn't know if this was a record that was going for big money. It turns out it's not. It was pretty cheap, like $6 or $8 or something. And it is, of course, The War of the Worlds. And it's just an incredible record. If you haven't heard it, highly recommended. Really, really great. And let's look at the booklet here. So this is the book that comes with it. A little bit of writing. Richard Burton, David Essex, Joe Partridge, Jeff Wayne, et cetera, et cetera. It gives a little kind of bio on each of the people. And then you get pages of text, but you also get a bunch of pages of art. And it's in beautiful shape. The record is actually in fantastic shape too. So it's kind of nice to have in my collection. But now, of course, I've started something where now I'm going to have to look for a copy of this record that has the book, so I can steal the book for my record. But this one's going to go to my dad. We go to see him this weekend, so I'm going to bring this for him. I talked to him on the phone about it. He's pretty excited that I found it, so It'll be good to have a complete. And I said, you know, I'll bring over the record. I said to him, I said, I'll bring over the record, and whichever one's in better condition, you can have the record too. He's like, oh, don't even bother. I know mine will be in better condition. He's very adamant that there's no way you found a used record that's going to be in better condition than mine, because I've really taken care of it. It's an album that he's loved as well. Loved it before he played it for us. But now that I have kids, I'm sure that part of the love of it is the times that we sat and listened to it together, the three of us. Really, really cool. And it's funny, when we played it on the radio, I immediately got a text from a friend of mine who was listening and going, holy shit, I haven't thought about that record since I was a kid. My dad used to play that for us too. And it's just one of those records that as soon as you hear it, it instantly brings back these memories. Some other genres of music that I'm into are some of the more heavier music, like heavy metal and a little bit of black metal and grindcore and that sort of thing. And one of the bands that, again, even when I go within a genre, I like the groups within that genre that are kind of unusual, even for that genre. They do have some kind of markings. So when I was kind of digging into black metal for a short period, a year or two, kind of pulled out a few artists that really appealed to me. And one of them was Vedbund's End. There's a reissue. I think it's like I don't know if it's demo material of their first album. It was a limited edition of, does that say 150? It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got 5 tracks on it. And it's incredible. They formed a band late, or the vocalist, the main guy behind it, formed a band later called Virus. And Virus is just, it's amazing as well. Again, like, they have these passages of almost kind of prog rock stuff that's kind of sounding off kilter, where it's almost clean vocals, but his voice kind of wavers a little bit. It's not kind of pitch perfect. And then all of a sudden, 3/4 of the way through the song, it'll pick up tempo and he'll get this screeching black metal type of voice going on. It's an amazing stuff, really, really amazing stuff. So with this one, you get a copy of the lyrics sheet, which is really great. And then they also include a nice poster. Fantastic. I only own one of the albums on CD. I think they only had 2 full lengths before they split up. And I think at this point, Virus has maybe 3 or 4 albums under their belts. I think I only own one of them. No, 2 of them. And they're both, I think Carhartt was their first one. And amazing stuff. If I remember, I'll try to add links in this video to some music if anybody's interested. In a video a little while ago, I talked about a UK label called Ghostbox. You don't see Ghostbox stuff here. You just don't. It's not something that gets widely distributed, at least in Winnipeg, maybe in other parts of North America, but not here. But this album got picked up by Warp Records, which again is another UK company, but Warp Records is big enough that it does get picked up here in Winnipeg. And this is Broadcast and the Focus Group, Witch Cults of the Radio Age. And it's an amazing album, really amazing. That sort of UK library music, BBC radiophonic workshop type of feel to it. Absolutely incredible. Really, really great album. I like the Focus Group quite a bit. Broadcast I don't know that much about, but the pairing is great. There's a vocalist for Broadcast, this woman whose name I don't know, and it's not readily available in the background. I'm not sure her name. Apologies. Her voice works so well on this. Really, really great. I'm going to look for some more Broadcast stuff. And on the BBC Radiophonic Workshop tip, Delia Derbyshire, who wrote the Doctor Who theme song with the radiophonic workshop back in the days of pre-electronic music, where they were actually manipulating magnetic tape and cutting tape and splicing it and manually running it over the heads to slow down and speed up, and recording all sorts of other field recordings and things to then turn into music, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She was a part of a band called White Noise. And I've got on CD, there was a reissue of this White Noise album and Electric Storm. I think they only did the one album. I don't know for sure. But when I saw this on vinyl for as cheap as it was, I had to jump on it. And it's so great. You can hear her influence on this for sure. You can hear some of that radiophonic workshop type of sound to it, but this takes it to a whole other level. A couple of highlights on this. Love Without Sound, the first track on the first side, is really great. My Game of Loving has a really creepy sexual undertone to it. But the whole thing is really, really incredible. Oh, Sleepy Reader, Damien, how the hell are you? Hello, hello. No comics tonight. We're talking music tonight. Something that I've been kind of deep into lately, as well as reading a little. It's been more music in my life lately. So we're kind of touching on that this evening. So it's really nice to have this on vinyl, especially, like I said, for considering how cheap it was. I don't know how rare this is. I don't know if this is a first printing or anything, or a first edition. It's Island Records. And I want to say like 71 or something, but I just don't know. Let's have a quick look. Doesn't say on the record either. Yeah, I'm really not sure the year, but again, if you're a fan of the channel and you're a little more adventurous when it comes to music, it's something to have a listen to. Really, really great. So again, that was White Noise and Electric Storm. Fantastic to have. The other thing that I've been into lately is I've been watching movies again, and I've got a lot of stuff that I haven't either I haven't seen for a lot of years, or it's stuff that I picked up over the last year or two that I just haven't watched. Another thing that I used to do a lot of, I just don't anymore. I just don't have the patience to sit down and watch TV. Some movies really just don't work for me either. So that really went through a real lull where I just didn't watch anything, but now that's starting to take an uptick. And one of my favorite, I really like European movies. I really like Japanese movies. I really like Italian spaghetti westerns. The other genre that the Italians kind of really nailed was called the giallo. So it was always a thriller, basically. There were a lot of books that came out that were giallos, and they were called giallo because giallo means yellow, and the books were always yellow with some artwork on it. So that's how you could tell what kind of story you were getting. So once they started adapting those stories to film, it kind of kicked off a whole new form of, and again, it was always this kind of almost like a Hitchcock person, man or woman, thrown into something that they don't know what's going on. There's somebody that's masked and gloved and hat and jacket that's trying to kill them. Always a bit of mystery. It's almost like a red herring, though. There's all these red herrings where you think that you can figure it out. You're not watching a Columbo mystery or some sort of mystery where you can actually make sense and chronologically go through the movie and figure out who the killer is. It's usually really disjointed and it's very dreamlike. And then the end comes, and it's a lot of the times the twist is similar from movie to movie. But these movies aren't really about that, to me anyway. And I guess a lot of people, anytime you get into a specific genre, some of the tropes that come with it, it becomes less about a surprise. It becomes how they lead you down this path and what kind of visual elements they play and how the music goes and what kind of shots they do. And especially with, yeah, I want to say, especially with like European and Japanese movies and that sort of thing, to me, they seem like they're a little more willing to take chances. Obviously, that's not true across the board. There's very adventurous North American movies as well. But one of my favorites within the genre is this one, Lizard in a Woman's Skin. And I have the soundtrack on CD. It's Ennio Morricone, who did a lot of the soundtracks for a bunch of these giallos, not exclusively, but this one is just absolutely incredible. Like I said, the movie is easily, I haven't seen all of them. I've seen a handful. This one is easily my favorite. And let me try to get stuff out of here without completely destroying everything. There we go. So, Mario Bava is cited as the guy who kind of created the giallo movie with blanking on the name right now. I do own it and I'm just completely blanking on the name. I'll get up in a second and I'll grab it. So this is a 2 LP set, one red, one blue. And I think the 4th side is some stuff that was previously unreleased, even on the CD version that I have. And then it comes with a great poster as well. Dario Argento did a couple of giallos as well too. Like I said, Mario Bava. There's just kind of quite a list of movies. I wish I had them. Yes, they are Italian, Damien. Yes, they are. I think it's Giallo is how you pronounce it if you're doing a search online to kind of get an idea of what movies are out there. But like I said, if you see Lizard in a Woman's Skin, it did get reissued by Mondo Macabro, I think just recently. I'm not sure what year the release is. I've got it in a couple of formats just because I love it so much. I'm going to find that Bava. Hold on one second there. Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace is the one that is cited as the one that kicked off the genre for film. And then here's the Lizard in a Woman's Skin, the Mondo Macabro. This one's got a bunch of special features, just as all the Mondo Macabro stuff does. Really, really, really great. I can't recommend it enough. And I mean, especially that era of music and soundtracks, that era of music really does something for me as well. The Italians just had this, I don't even know, this kind of swagger to some of the music that's really, really beautiful. And then finally for records, a little while ago I talked about this woman, Annette Peacock, and her song, I'm the One, and there was a reissue album that I bought last year, I think sometime. Easily just such a fantastic song, one of my top 10 favorite songs. I found another album of hers, X Dreams, for dirt cheap as well. A few bucks, $4 or $5 or something. And I hadn't really delved into any of her other catalog because the bits and pieces that I heard that weren't from that one album, I wasn't as crazy about, but because it was so cheap, I couldn't pass it up. And actually this first side is really incredible. There's some really great stuff. The first song, My Mama Never Taught Me How to Cook, is incredible. Her voice is really fantastic and has this kind of power to it and this emotion to it that's really, really great. Plays with quite a big band of people on all sorts of instruments, keyboards and saxophones and congas and woodwinds and bass and et cetera, and guitars. And she wrote all of her stuff. And apparently she was a big influence. I didn't realize this on David Bowie. David Bowie wanted to work with her, and she flat out refused him. And on one of his songs, the name, of course, escapes me, he sort of paid homage, and which is just a nice word of, he ripped off "I'm the One" or a segment of it for the end of one of his songs. I'll try to put those links in the video afterwards too, if I remember. But the thing that appealed to me about that "I'm the One" was the fact that it was using synthesizers and electronics in a very unique way. She was affecting her voice with it, giving it this almost, what sounded to my ears when I first heard it, very modern. I thought it was almost like a DJ, a modern day DJ or electronic musician that was remixing some old song, but no, it was actually her from the 70s. This particular album is 1979. And like I said, side 1 is incredible. Side B is just okay. I don't think it's as good. I was listening to this with Lillian, and Lillian on the second side, she was saying, Daddy, these are very sad songs. They're very sad. It's like, yeah, they are kind of sad. So they're definitely not as upbeat as the first side. One thing previously that I wanted to mention about Bandcamp, when I was talking about Bandcamp and the whole modular synth kind of world, another guy that I found on there that really appeals to me is a guy that records by the name of Bastian Void, and he does a lot of synthesizer music. And this album here, Phonics, which I bought from him and then burned onto a CD for myself, is such an amazingly relaxing album. Special Sexy Lady friend of myself listened to it when I first downloaded it, and both of us were kind of blown away by it. Bastian Void, a couple other ones that I burnt on CD. Ha Ha Mart, I ended up getting the tape as well. Kind of a easy listening. You're strolling through the supermarket or the mall or in an elevator. Really great, and it's his first album, and it's just incredible. So incredible that, again, he was another guy, as well as Bastian Void. I sent them emails afterwards just kind of saying how incredible their albums were. That's another one to check out if you ever do venture down the Bandcamp. The guy who is Bastian Void, his label is this, what is it, Moss Archive, which, again, if you do kind of venture down the Bandcamp world, check out Moss Archive. That's about it, really. Thanks very much for the few people that stopped in. Damien, it was nice to see you in text form in the chat box there. Oh, look at that. Asimovist, I've made it to the East Coast, so now I'm catching you live. That's amazing, and you're catching me live right at the end. That's great. It's nice to see you. I haven't talked to you in a little while. I'll try to check my email and send you a message, see how things are going. East Coast of the States, I imagine, right? No chance you're up in Canada, are you? So thanks very much if you did stick around and if you're watching in the future. It's not my usual video, but this is some of the stuff that I've just been into lately. And I just felt the desire to kind of chat with you about it at, what is it now, 12:15. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for stopping in, guys. And we'll talk to you all very soon. Good night.